All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this month's Reverse Book Club. We are thrilled today, as you all who were on the sales meeting on Tuesday heard me say, thrilled to be joined by easily one of, if not the most well-read realtor that I know. Really one of those well-read people. One of my favorite things about working with Shoshana, who is the head honcho of the Socher team, which does over $40 million a year in real estate sales. Every time I talk to Shoshana, I am guaranteed to get the question, what are you reading? And I love it because every time I talk to her, I have to make sure that I'm reading something so that I can keep up with her. But incredibly talented leader, investor partner in our company, ALC member, constant on our training calendar. I'm trying to think of all the things that you do, Shoshana. It'd probably be easier to start with the things that you don't do for the company. So am incredibly appreciative of you taking the Reverse Book Club mantle for this month. Really excited about this book, The 4 Disciplines of Execution, and really coming to our agents at a really important time. We are about to get really busy, if you aren't already. Things are going to be really wild. And so making sure that we are knuckled down and buckled down on executing through the spring market is going to be huge. So no one came here to listen to me talk. I'm going to turn it over to Shoshana. Feel free to take it away, my friend. You're currently muted. You're muted. Sorry.
I had a problem, which is that my mouse decided to need charging at that exact moment. Anyway, first of all, thank you for that really nice introduction. I really appreciate it. And thank you for inviting me to be here today. That's really awesome. Today, I really want to kind of focus and hone in on how following models, not just the models from Keller Williams, but models that are presented to us in other ways, can lead us to increased revenue and to lead us to achieving the things that we set out to do. I am always a little bit concerned to use the word resolutions, but let's just say that we set out to do a few things in January or in December or in November of last year, and to see ways in which we can make sure that we're on track so that when we look back, we're like, oh my God, I actually hit that. That's so cool. Stay with me till the end. I have a PDF to share with you from this book that will be really useful if you want to put things that you learned today into action. It's just a very useful thing. So I'd ask, if you can, if you're into it, turn on your camera for a minute. I don't care if your background is messy. I have a kid helper today because it turns out to be spring break, which of course mothers like me forget that even exists. And don't be shy. Don't be a stranger. I'd love to meet you face to face. Like to all talk to each other, and that. So nice to see you all here. Turn off your distractions for just a minute. Give me a couple of minutes. It's so hard. I know I'm always on a Zoom and on my phone and on my keyboard and doing something else and blah, blah, blah. Give yourself just a minute to focus. I really think that turning off distractions and coming to what we're doing together is super helpful. Before we get started with the 4 disciplines of execution, I want to show a practical tip because I think that we can also get really, really we all get super high level and we're looking down and stuff. I want to show just a super practical tip, like how I do things. So I have in my hands what it can be purchased on Amazon for under $9. I think they're like $8.95 or something like that. And it's called a dot journal, D-O-T, dot. There's nothing in it. It's blank when you start. It's completely blank. And it's analog. And yes, I use everything digital. And yes, I love social media and I love my Google Calendar. However, what I do, and this is the real tip of all tips, is I open up the last page and I make myself, as you can see here, an index. And it's blank when I start, right? It's completely blank and empty. I start with an index. Because when you read a good book, at the back, you can flip it open, you can see if it references Mike Rapasky. Does this talk about Mike Rapasky or not? And then I'm like, oh, page 32. So when I started my journal, bullet journal, and I call it a bullet journal, you can look online, there's a million YouTube videos on how to do a bullet journal and a million different methods. First I started with mapping out. This is kind of, this has October in it. So I've been using this one since October, and I'm about to run out. I'm on the very last page. It's kind of convenient that it's the new month. So I have like October, November, December, and I knew some things like family birthdays, wedding, etc. that was coming up. My next page, if you can see, says gratitude at the top. And that was starting on page 2. So I went to my index and I wrote in here gratitude, and I put on page 2. So if I wanted to go back to my gratitude page, I always knew how to get there. Then the following pages have to do things. I'm going to just give you ideas of what I use. Buyer intake. I have a whole page of when I talk with buyers, what they want, and that goes in my index. And then when I want to find it again, I can find it. Business planning. This is when we were at Mike Rapasky's business planning clinic, and I have that's page 26. So if I go to my index, I can see that, let's see here, page 23, 29, 25, 26, business planning. So when I want to go back to my business planning and find it again, I know exactly where to find it because I've used an index. Then I typically, and some of these are really nice looking and some of these are really crummy looking. I typically will open up the middle of the page for a week. This is this particular week, and I have here my affirmations. I have here the people I want to speak to, and you see my affirmation for that week. I am worthy of massive paychecks. So I don't know what your affirmations are, but if you want that as one of yours, I welcome you to share it. And these are the people I need to speak to in my family, because guess what? A whole week goes by and I don't talk to my mom. Here's I exercised. Here's some practical stuff I had to take care of. And then in the middle, you see here's the dollar productive things. And then I had added gratitude along the side because every day I'm writing down what I'm thankful for. So just like some practical, just one way. It's not like, it's not magical, but it's magical for me. It's the way I keep my focus. And I did take notes actually as I was reading the book, even though it's like my 3rd time through the book, but it's still, I have. So now I get to open to the 4 disciplines of execution page. Anyway, feel free to unmute, chime in, ask questions as we go. So the only thing that's bad about this book is the word execution, because it has dual meaning, and I don't love the word execution, but we will take the other meaning of what it means for us in business and figure out how we can play with it and what it means for us as business owners. The other thing that I think is interesting, and if you've read business books, which you probably have, you know that they're very front-loaded. What I mean by front-loaded is the first, the first bit gives you all the information, and then they're like rehashing it over and over and over and over again. And if you haven't seen that in business books, you probably haven't read one yet, but that's okay. It's just the way it is here. So I'm curious, do I have the ability to share screen? Okay, Carrie, in a second, not urgent, but if I could get ability to share screen at some point, that would be great too. So the 4 disciplines of execution have to do with literally just 4 steps. Okay. And they are so basic. And yet when we get into them, I'm going to ask everybody to unmute and just chime in. And I'm going to keep, I'll keep notes on what we're talking about. So the first one is to focus on the wildly important. Whatever that means to you, just kind of keep that in your mind for a second, to focus on the wildly important. The second discipline is to act on lead measures. We'll talk about that in 1 second. The third one is to keep a compelling scoreboard. And number 4 is to create a cadence of accountability. And today we're going to talk about together how to do it, whether you're a solo agent whether you're on a team or whether you run a team, because I think that all three scenarios are applicable. And if you've been in any other career, which actually I have not, but if you've been in any other career, you might notice that your workplace used things like this. And I'd be curious, has anybody ever been to Orange Theory? Because I think that Orange Theory is based off of this book. Didn't ever ask the owner, but I do think it's, but yeah, I think it's based off of this book. And if you've ever seen, there's certain real estate platforms, companies that have time clocks, not to punch in and punch out, but to see if you're on track for manufacturing. For instance, a manufacturing process might use things from this book as well. Okay, so let's start with the wildly important goal. Unmute yourself, and we're going to focus completely on real estate sales, and tell me a potential wildly important goal. Don't be shy.
I'll jump in, Shoshana.
Go for
One
it.
of mine is to, before the end of the year, get my first investment property.
Love that. Okay. Somebody else.
Hey, Shoshana, this is Michael Rapaski. My wildly important goal is to grow our market center to 500 agents this year.
Okay. Somebody else. Throw it out. Some wildly important goal. Anything that makes sense in real estate in your business. Don't be shy or I'm going to call on you.
This is Doris. I'd like to have 6-figure sales income by the end of the year.
Love that.
Shoshana, one of my goals is to sell 20 properties.
Love that. Anything else? Who else has another one? One more. Don't be shy. I know you have a goal. It's out there somewhere.
How about to have more listings than working with buyers? Focus on listings.
Okay. Can I say have a listing focused business?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So now those are all really, really, really amazing, wildly important goals. Can we all brainstorm for just 1 second? If they aren't our personal goals, forget personal goals for just 1 second about in your business. What are some other types of wildly important goals could we have? Guys, give me just 2 seconds. I'm sorry.
Alonzo, I saw you on mute. Were you about to share a wildly important goal?
Yeah, I was gonna say make over 80,000 my first year in real estate.
I love that. Okay. Okay, those are great. Now let's just pretend for 1 second here that we're not talking about our own personal goals. Throw out some other things. Everybody literally just throw out some stuff that could be real estate related goals. Other kinds, something else. Anything else that you can think of?
Real estate related?
Yeah, real estate related.
I want to get business by referral only.
Love that. Something else?
Maybe have a team.
Okay,
Become an investor.
love it. Keep going.
I want to work with more investors.
Okay. Anything else?
Break
Couple
into
more?
luxury.
Okay, anything else?
I want to take a vacation.
Oh, now we're thinking big. Okay. So this is the way this goes, right? You all of a sudden you're throwing stuff out. We're just thinking. We're just like getting the juices flowing. We have some real stuff that's near and dear to our hearts. And we have some things that are just like things. They're just general things. Now we're going to get a whole other kind of like, we're going to get a whole other part of the chart, because I'm going to ask some questions, or not chart really, from the words that we came up with. I'm going to ask some questions specific to this, and I'm going to go to you, Mike, just because I think this is something that you know. So I'm going to, what's our current number of agents?
446.
446. Okay. So I'm going to say, well, let me put it this way. Let me do something a little bit different, actually. Let me go like this and say that what we're going to do for our wildly important goal is we're going to say that we want to, oops, except for that you have to have the text box. Sorry about that. From X to Y by when. Okay, so you're going to grow the market center to 500 agents. See, now, how do you get back to the text box? Who knows? I don't even know. Okay, from 500 agents, from, you said 446?
Yep.
446, and you said by the end of the year?
Yep.
By 12/31/2022. Okay, so the thing here is really to have something that's like the from this to that by when. And the component of the whole thing is really what gives us our wildly important goal. Each of these is amazing. First, investment property. So I'm going to say from 0, right, to 1 by, when is that going to be by? Who told me? Was that Bernadette who said that they were going to have their first investment property?
Well, my goal is by November, right before the holidays.
Okay, great. Okay, perfect. Who said they're going to have 6-figure sales income?
Doris, that's me.
Hey,
by
Doris.
the end of the year.
Okay, from what to what? From what?
From
Where are you
now
starting?
till 1st of December.
Okay, but where are you starting now? Are you at a 5 or 4, 3, 2? Where are you with sales income now?
I just have like 3 deals that will be closing.
Okay. Okay, so we're saying like, so that's still
Just
going to be
started.
$6,000, $8,000. So we're going to say from 4 figures to 6 figures by 12/1/2022.
Yeah.
Who said they wanted to sell 20 properties? Alonzo, was that you? No.
It was me.
Oh, sorry, Brian.
I've sold one this year.
Yay. Okay, so you're going to sell from 1. You're going to move the needle, right, from 1 to 20 by, and they really need to be pended. I'm going to just say what I would suggest is instead of sell, maybe use the word penned. So we're going to, or under contract, right? Under contract 20 properties by from 1 to 20, by, I don't know, October 31st, let's just say, so that they're for sure to
Okay.
close this year. Okay, have a listing focused business. That's interesting. You therefore need to know what your number is. Like, are you at a 50-50 business now? Are you at a 40-60? It's very challenging. I love this one. This is so challenging. You need to know your number so that you can go from this to that by then. So let's say a goal for that might be let's just say you're at 60% buyers now, but you want to be 60% listings. So from 60%, or sorry, from 40% listings to 50% listings by August 1st. Then from 50 to 60, you're going to move it up. Earn over $80,000 in your first year. I love that. We have to figure out, again, from this to that by when. And this is your wildly important goal. Some of these things are more amorphous. So if you're like, have a team, take a vacation, break into the luxury market. I mean, take a vacation. That's an interesting one. Somebody throw out a sentence that we could use from X to Y by when for take a vacation. I have an idea, but I don't want to throw it out yet. Who's got an idea for vacation? How can we get vacation to be from X to Y? I'm going to go back to let me ask a different question. Is the vacation a time issue or a money issue?
Ooh, great question. Time.
Time issue. Okay, so we're gonna go from 0 time off to 2 weeks off by
Hmm.
August
June.
31st,
June 1st.
June 1st. Love that. Thinking big. Okay. I love that. From zero to 2, 0 days to 14 days off by, and then we all know what has to happen next, which is IE. It has to hit your calendar. So this is really how we come up with a wildly important goal and how we quantify our wildly important goal. The challenge being, of course, that the wildly important goal is, you don't want just like, you tend to want to have 10 of them. Well, I want to go on vacation and I want to have $50,000 in savings and I want to have paid off my car and I'm going to have, okay, no, because then we get into like the 1,000 goals and they're not really wildly important. If you have one wildly important goal, which typically in our organization has been to sell X number of properties equaling X number of volume, which will therefore equal X amount of gross commission income, GCI, by, and this is why typically I use when I was saying with Brian, like typically I use October 31st as our drop dead deadline. Now, obviously you can put sales under in November, you can put sales under in December. I have also had things roll over into January, which, happens, it's fine. But it just, it's just good to know. So typically a goal will be, and I like sell 20 properties. So sell 20 properties equaling this. So from X to Y, so, from 1 to 20 by October 31st. Now we're going to get into some more terminology though, and I want to talk about this a really important component. And it's those people who've been in business before know this term, and those people who do not, measure versus lead measure. Anybody ever heard these terms before outside of Mike Rapasky?
Not fair. Not fair.
Okay, so I want to talk about what a lag measure is. A lag measure is an outcome that you cannot control. You can control it, but you can't you can't only control it. I'm gaming for 200 sales this year on my team. If 3 people on my team decide to leave my team, I will not be hitting 200 sales. I will just not. It is absolutely not going to be possible. That's something I can't control. What I can control is a lead measure, which is how I would get to those number of sales. If you plan to sell 20 homes this year, which I keep going back to just because that one happens to be right in front of my face, the way I typed it out. If you are at planning to game for 20 sales this year, then that is your lag measure. And that lag measure is exactly, well, let's see here. Won't this be so cool if we can actually figure out how to do the circles? No, we can't, so never mind. But we would circle it if we knew how to circle, but we will not circle. So that's your lag measure. Now, when you measure a lag measure, it doesn't tell you how you get there. We all count, every single person who's in real estate or in sales, probably of absolutely any kind, counts their income before they've received the check, before it's gotten in your bank account. It's like spent 10 times over. It's like, you're like, oh God, I got a $2,500 commission check coming. And then you think of all the things you could use. Pretty soon it's like spent and it hasn't even hit your account. So those kinds of things ultimately are hard to control. And in this book, 4 Disciplines of Execution, the number two discipline is this one about counting lead measures. Now, what's a lead measure? Let's throw out, we're going to start with this 20 sales notion. Give me some ways you could get to 20 sales. I don't want to hear something, one thing from each person on the call. Unmute and tell me one way you could get to 20 sales.
Call in our
Watch out, I'm gonna
sphere.
call on you.
We can make calls to our sphere to.
Okay,
It's
call Sphere,
goals.
wait, stop, call Sphere, that's one. Somebody else?
Expires, calling expires.
Call expireds, okay. What else? 20 sales.
Increase our database.
What else?
Call Fizbos.
Great. What else?
Call past clients.
Great. Something else?
Marketing.
Network events.
Okay. Something
Social
else?
media,
Anything else? No?
Referral.
Referrals. Okay. I'm going to say get or obtain referrals. Okay, great. Now let's go back here to our number one thing here. Our number one was this wildly important goal. And if it's okay with everybody, unless you're totally opposed, I'm going to use this sell 20 properties as our thing that we're going to kind of use as our model for this, just for this book discussion. Again, anything can be your wildly important goal as long as you have your sentence here, which I whatever, I can't figure out how to move that over, but we're not going to stress out. We're going to get our sentence in place. So we're going to go from X to Y, right? From 1 to 20, because we had talked about having one sale already. From 1 sale to 20 by, let's go from 1 to 20 closed units by 10/31/2022. That's the wildly important goal. From today, April 1st through 10/31/2022, we know that our wildly important goal is to get from 1 to 20 closed units by that date. Okay, now we're going to talk about discipline 2. Discipline 2 is what we're talking about here, these lag measures versus lead measures. And number 2. And as we were saying, there's something called a lag measure. The 20 closed units is actually a lag measure. And if you're tracking that or counting that, it's exciting and it's neat, but it's less actually compelling in the end because we need to track how we actually get there. And here we came up with a ton of different ways that are in the end lead measures, and they are things that you could measure. But we want to talk about for a second on how you're going to measure them. Like, what is the measure? So tell me about how you would measure some of these things if you were going to measure, if you were going to measure them.
DTD2.
Okay. If for those that don't know what that is, can you explain?
Yeah, it's utilizing your database, making sure you have 4 touches per year by doing 2 letters a week.
Perfect. Okay, whatever. Usually I'll just leave it at that, even though correct. And if you don't have the DTD2, reach out to anybody in leadership or me or anybody we can share, happy to share with you. Great. So that's true. But how would you measure that?
By how many calls you completed.
Ah, love that. Okay, great. Totally agreed. Okay, or how many you spoke to, right? Okay. If you were to call expireds, how would you measure expireds? Curious, just actually, if I could with a show of hands, is anybody trying to work expireds right this minute? It's a challenging game, I think, just in my opinion, because of the way the market is right this minute. I personally find it really challenging. And I personally would just throw out that I love working my sphere. And I think that's been really my best source of business year over year, which we could talk about another time. But anyway, we're talking about measuring, how to measure something. We got to measure something so that we can get our wildly important goal here really under control. So I want to talk about, like, what are you going to do to measure this stuff? Like, what's the measure? Like, tell me how you measure. What do you do? Like, on a given day, how do you know if think about somebody who sews, right? Like you measure, or woodworker, or anything like that, like you measure, right? You measure a lot. Oh, they always say measure twice, cut once. If you're like most of us in sales, you probably already cut it. And then we're like, shoot, I should have measured better. But, but you know that you should measure. And every time, whether you're looking at your floor, your curtains, your dress, you know you're going to measure something, right? And you got to really, really, really measure it. Now take that analogy to your business. I'm telling you how physically, I don't care if it's your blue notebook, I don't care if it's your Post-its or your database or your command or whatever, how are you going to measure some of this stuff? Throw out some ideas.
Well, I have an idea. I mean, one goal I try to set for myself is to set 3 listing appointments a week.
I love
If I can do 3 listing appointments a week and land 2 of them 50 weeks out the year, I'm not on pace for this, but
Okay.
a goal. I set 3 listing appointments a week, land 2 of them a week, and sell 90% of those homes. Then that would actually be 90
Wait, you
homes.
missed a step. You missed a step. So 3 listing appointments set. When you say land, do you mean land the listing appointments or land
Yes.
signed agreement?
Yes, listing sign, get the listing agreement signed.
Okay, so 3
Actually get the
listing
listing.
appointments set. I feel that there's a missing step there, which is that what if somebody cancels on you?
Well, that's why, I mean, that's why I'm trying, I set 3 and trying to get 2 of them.
Okay,
You know, I mean, I can, that's very doable to get 2 listings out of 3 appointments.
okay,
And the way the market is, if you get a listing, more than likely it's going to sell over one majority of the
Yeah.
time. So if it sell 90% of them,
yeah.
you know, it's a lofty goal. I'm not on pace for
No,
it,
I
but
love
it's,
that.
it's something I strive for.
I totally love that. So that's a huge lead measure, is listing appointments set. Even appointments set, even if you had to take out listings, I'm only going to just go like this for just 1 second, just pretend that it was just appointments, 3 appointments set.
Mhm.
2
There's 3
agreements
appointments
signed.
set, 2 converted to listings.
Okay, I love that. I totally love that. I think that's a very, very, very measurable goal. Now let's pretend,
then-
let's work out the math. In 50 weeks a year, you go on 3, you sign 2 agreements. So we're talking about 100 signed agreements.
Yes.
Okay, and of those agreements, 90% will sell because 10% will evaporate for one reason or another. So, and that might be a little high, you might be more towards 85, but
Yeah.
still, let's just count it. So 90%, so it's 90 sold listings a year.
Mhm.
Will which of these things back over here on the wildly important goal will those hit for you? If one of those were yours.
For the wildly important, let's see. You know, out of the list from under 1, I mean, that would be, I mean, that's a have a listing Facebook focused business.
Love
know,
it.
So
Okay, so you want it, so in this case, the scenario that you're giving me, it's that there's appointments set is your lead measure. The money that you
yes,
earn and the closed units in the end is your lag measure. Okay,
yes,
so that's your lag measure. Lag measure is cool because look, at the end of the day, we all are like, I sold 170,000 units or whatever. I mean, that's so cool. Nobody ever goes, guess what? I dialed for 5 hours today. You know,
right.
you know, if you call me at the end of a given Tuesday and you said to me, what was your win? I will tell you my biggest win this month. This is really true. My biggest win this month is I have my biggest career sale ever under contract. It's not close, but my biggest career sale ever in 15 years. And I'm very, very excited about it. But I'm not going to, if you call me, I'm not going to go like, yeah, you're not going to believe how I did the lead generation for it. I'm going to tell you about the sale. Isn't it interesting? Like we all focus on the lag measure when what we should be focusing on ultimately is the lead measure. And if that worked, and I could tell you guys what I did to get that sale, but irregardless, if that worked, why am I not doing that over and over and over and over again until I beat that horse dead?
A lot of people don't care about practice. They don't care about what we did in practice. They just
No, they don't.
care about the games. How many you win?
Yes. How do you win? And you can only win with a measure, and you can only win with a lead measure. You cannot win by tracking a lag measure. You can only win by tracking a lead measure. Okay, So we've got discipline 1, focus on a wildly important goal. We've got number 2, focus on a lead measure. And I want to talk about one other really quick little thing on the lead measure, which is you have to gather ideas for how you're going to track them. And again, I don't care if it's on paper, I don't care if it's digital, I don't care if you're using a paid system, although I don't see why you would, but you can, and if your thing, for instance, on the social media example is I need to converse with 25 people a day on social media, then do it. Then do it and track your results, because you have to measure the lead measure in order to ever get to the lag measure. So we're going to keep this one. I think we should keep this one, which I think, and by the way, I love lofty goals. Let's keep this one for a second, pretending that, wait, does this make, they don't track to each other, but we're not going to worry about that so much. I mean, I'm saying that this lead measure of getting 3 listing appointments set a week is not tracking to 20 closed units. It's tracking to more like probably 90, 100 closed units, and that will bring its own set of problems, but they're good problems to have. So this to me is a great lead measure. This lead measure, how many calls you completed, how many you spoke to, you need to quantify. So if I know I have to speak to 20 people to set an appointment, and I've got to set an appointment every single day, I mean, literally, I have to set an appointment a day, then I'm going to speak to 20 people a day, because out of those 5 appointments I set in a week, 3 are going to 2, 3, 1, whatever, are going to cancel until my numbers get better and my skills increase. So we got number 1, our wildly important goal. We've got number 2, tracking our lead measures versus lag measures. And now we're going to talk about the next thing in the disciplines of execution, which I think is actually a really, really, really interesting question. And that is how we scoreboard. And who here, raise your hand if you ever played sports. You don't have to really raise your hand, but you could raise your hand. Okay, Mike Rapaski, what'd you play?
I was on the bench in high school football.
Kelly, how about you? What's your sport? You on mute? Are you muted? Oops. Still muted? Okay, that's okay. You can leave it in the chat. Anybody else who's any kind of athlete, fake athlete, real athlete, something where you kept score of some sort? Basketball, I love that. Okay, this is such the perfect analogy. They bring this analogy out in this book actually about basketball in specific. When you go to the Cavs game, the whole fun thing, no matter where you sit, is that huge scoreboard in the middle. We're all like watching it do its little fireworks and this and that. If the scoreboard is out, it's boring as heck. And I know most of the people on this call don't know me from like a long-term perspective, but I brought my kids up largely in Berkeley, and then we moved here. In Berkeley, everybody plays cooperative games. It's like everything's cooperative and we're all winners. Well, guess what? We are all winners. Every single person on this call is a winner. But to know whether you won against yourself, you have to keep a scoreboard, because without a scoreboard and without a compelling scoreboard, the game is not fun. It's not that fun to play a game where everybody wins, because you want to know what, in the end of the day, like when you go to the sports games, you go to anything of those things, it's a way to track your lead measures is to keep a compelling scoreboard. So I want to talk about scoreboards for a second, and I want to show you something that I've done in my team and why it's actually not a great scoreboard, because I'm actually just looking through some notes that I took too. Okay, I want to talk about the compelling scoreboard. This is the most, and everybody's seen things like this, usually in a context of fundraising, right? Like often places that are fundraisers, they're trying to school or whatever, they're trying to hit the number of amount of money donated. Why this is not that compelling of a scoreboard is because this scoreboard actually tracks lag measures. So you go back here, it tracks a lag measure, which is closed units. So this goal has 200 and it says 2022 at the top. And you can see, this is our goal, is 200 units for the year. And it's a very, like, it's kind of waterlogged and it's just, whatever. And we're at 37 units for the year so far. We haven't hit 40 yet, but we're at 37. And this tracks the lag measure. So let me ask, first of all, are there any questions before I move on about lag measures and lead measures and scoreboards? Why is this not that compelling? You can unmute yourself, just chime in, tell me why this is not so compelling.
If I wake up today and I want to be at 40 closed units, I can't.
You cannot. And not only that, Mike, I can't tell you how to get there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Not that interesting. Not that interesting. I mean, it's fun. It's fun because we all want to see the dial go up, but it's not that fun. It's really not that fun. Tell me other kinds of scoreboards besides sports and besides my temperature gauge. What kind of scoreboards have you ever seen used in anything? Has anybody worked in another industry with scoreboards or any other kinds of this is who said they'd been to Orange Theory? Kelly, was that you? Yeah. So I don't know if you, let me just see if I can unmute you. No, I don't know. Okay, well, anyway, if you've ever been to Orange Theory, interestingly, they keep your scoreboard up there. And the scoreboard is up there and you're constantly working to beat your own score. And it's really a compelling, interesting thing. If you use the Peloton, you go on the Peloton app and hold on one second, it's not a scoreboard, but it gives you these little blue dots, right, of the different days that you've worked out. This is my scoreboard, as I know whether I've hit my personal exercise goals or not, because I have my scoreboard in front of me. So what could you scoreboard knowing that you want to hit this lag measure of these closed units, and you want to track a lead measure of appointments set, calls made, engagement through social media, etc. Give me some ideas for scoreboards. How could you do it? How could you set it up?
You can have a calendar, like let's say for the month of April, right? You have a calendar printed out, and so you want to set 3 appointments a week. For every day you set an appointment that week, you give yourself like a tally mark. And you do that for every day for the whole year for 2022. Right. And then come 2023, you can compare April or each month to how you did the previous year and to beat yourself from the previous year.
I love that. I totally love that. Okay. In the world of calendar printed out, I actually do have a calendar printed out, and I always mark on it if a day off, like a day off a month. Speaking of Mike Rapasky's vacation. So like the 15th, I've closed the office. It's Good Friday and it's the day before Passover. So I just was like, we're all taking the day off, the 15th. But I love that, a tally mark for appointments set. Okay. What else could you, let's go on this calls. How could you easily track how many calls you're making? What's your scoreboard? Like, what could it look like?
I mean, you could.
That's used, you used even as a kid, something super basic, like don't overthink it.
Well, you got the tally marks again.
Yeah. Tally marks. And I'm going to say here graph, right? You can use a graph of how many people you called today. If you know it takes you 10 calls to set an appointment, man, you got to hit those 10 calls every single day. You have to know your scoreboard. You have to scoreboard for yourself so that you are looking at something. And, I always think about like all these examples that they use in the book about FedEx and hotels and manufacturing. I don't really know because I literally have never had a job since I was 19. I've been in business, but I've never actually had an employer. So these are things though that you can score for yourself, or if you're running a team, your team can get together and figure out how they want to scoreboard what they're doing. And it's a really interesting thing when you start looking around at different kinds of scoreboards that are used. And you want to display your actual results and your target results. So I would say, like, if you're looking at a graph, right, and again, you need to hit 20 every day, you have to have your number so that you can your straight line of what you're trying to achieve, and then the actual number of your score. Now, again, with this basketball analogy, if you went to the game and the scoreboard went out, you'd be like, huh, was that 2 or was that 3 or was that a, whatever. And it can be personalized, it could be goofy, it can be fun, it can have your favorite characters on it, it can be serious and be business focused, it can be a tool the brokerage provides, it can be something you create, just whatever, don't overthink it, but make a compelling scoreboard and keep it out and visual so that it's really there and you can see that at all times. Now, I think I'm hoping that I have a link. I'm gonna not a link, yeah, a link that I'm gonna send actually for a little review. I'm gonna drop in this chat. Hope you can review this class. Hope you liked it. And we're gonna move on to the 4th discipline of execution. The link is actually in the chat. Thank you, Riley, I appreciate that. And we're gonna talk about our 4th discipline of execution, number 4. Ready for this one? Create a cadence of accountability. Okay, ouch. What does that mean? Okay, pretend you're a kid and you're in school. Tell me what the teacher says to you to create accountability. Come on, you guys, you're not that old. I know you were all in school. None of us are that old. Somebody tell me what a teacher says to a child to encourage accountability.
Well, what did you work on last night?
Ooh, I like that. Okay. Okay. What did you work on last night? Yeah, that's a good one. What else?
Have
Something
your
else.
parent, whoops, have
Go
your
ahead.
parents sign it.
Aha.
I had many of those.
Okay. How about music lessons? Anybody have music lessons? What'd your teacher say to you?
Did you practice?
Yeah, I was, oh my God. Right? Did you practice? What else? Athletes? Have you, I'm thinking about like Kobe when he was a wrestler in high school, did you do your running or your basics, your push-ups, done whatever, whatever that could be, push-ups, I'm just gonna say, or they were always, that stupid thing with wrestling where they're always like watching their calorie intake for the different weight classes they want to be in. There's all these different things, right, that outsiders do to create a cadence of accountability. Now, these are outsider things. Okay, so this cadence of accountability is what we get to create for ourselves. And so this is an important kind of nuance, I think, which is like, let's think about how we're going to commit something to ourselves, to our team members, to the people we work with, and the people that depend on us for our income. So if you are the only person that depends on you for your income, you have ultimate accountability because you only need to think about yourself. However, it's very hard to hold yourself accountable. And if you have a family, a child, a dog, a parent, a grandparent, whatever, a loved one that you support, then, or you contribute to, then your accountability ultimately can lie there. If you're on a team, then you can assume that your team will hold you accountable in some way. But the point is here is that when we come in and we say we're going to set 3 listing appointments this week, that's my commitment. I'm going to set 3 listing appointments this week. That's this week. So let's say today's Friday. Well, what do I do next Friday? Can you imagine what happens next Friday?
By then I have to have been on or actually been to 3 listing appointments, by
Can I
then,
say
no later
report?
than Saturday.
Can I use the word report?
Report, okay, sure,
So report results, right?
okay.
So you're gonna report whether you actually went on the 3 listing appointments, or
Right.
whether you actually set them, whether you went on them, and then what are you gonna do for the following Friday?
Do the same.
Yeah,
So my question is, the thing is with me is, if I set, say if I, like I said, these lofty goals, but if I go on 3 listing appointments and I get all 3 of them, right?
Mhm.
And then I get the next week, I'll get, say, 2. By the 3rd week, I'm thinking like, I'm kind of playing with house money, like I got a lead or something, like I start slacking off,
yeah,
I just like get more relaxed or something, or,
sure.
and
So
especially
what
if
you
one of
also-
those listings, especially if one of those listings are going to be a pretty big listing for my average.
So he talks about in this book, the 3 he's. They talk about getting caught up in the whirlwind. And the thing that I would say is that what you're talking about is the whirlwind, because what's going to happen is you're going to go like, nah, I got a good listing last week, so like I'm cool. And then you're going to get caught up with like actual business, right? Like the actual, how do you, how do you do the actual business when you're that caught up in having in what you've committed to do, is I think what you're saying. So the thing about it is that then you go back to how you're being held accountable. And there's a few kind of like rules, guidelines, not rules, but like guidelines of how you can do it. And they go like this, same place, same time, same day, or what do you want to say? Same day and same time. So meaning that like, okay, it's Friday at what, 11, it's Friday at noon. If I said to you, okay, it's Friday at noon, are you committing to 3 appointments, setting 3 listing appointments this coming week? Is that what you're committing to?
Yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
so I'm gonna check in with you on Friday at noon next week. We're gonna have the same place, Zoom, same day, Friday, same time, noon. And I'm gonna ask you, tell me how those 3 listing appointments, how setting those 3 listing appointments went. And you're gonna say, make it up, please, just say something.
Well, I'll tell you, I went on 3 appointments, literally this week, went on 3 appointments, have 1 listing agreement signed. The other one seller said, call him back in 3 weeks because he's
Mhm.
finishing the house, so it's a rehab.
Okay,
And the other seller said she's going to make a decision to list with me, yay or nay today. So those are
okay,
3 appointments.
okay, so those were 3 amazing appointments. That sounds really good. I love those results. Now, what's your new commitment for this coming week?
Well, I'm going to do some, actually Friday evening, I'm going to lead generate even today.
Okay, but your
And Saturday.
but we're tracking your lead measure of appointments set, right?
Right. So I'll do
Okay.
that starting for next week.
So your next week is going to be setting three new listing appointments.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm going to check in with you next Friday and we're going to see how that goes. Okay.
Okay.
Love it. You see what I'm saying? Like that cadence of accountability. And again, literally you can set yourself a reminder on your calendar. Checking with yourself, checking with myself, check my scoreboard, different things like that. Excuse me one sec, guys. I gotta just say one thing to my daughter. Yes, sweetheart. No, she needs 30 minutes. She'll be here in 30 minutes. Okay. So that's exactly how the cadence of accountability goes, which is to have it the same place, same day, same time. And you could do it with a friend. You can do it with somebody in the market center. You can do it with yourself if you're very, very brave. You can do it with an accountability partner, your bold team, et cetera, et cetera. Reach out to people. It's actually, I think in our market center, you would probably have a lot of people, anybody on this call would have a lot of people wanting to be accountability partners. If they put it in the Facebook group, just say, hey, looking for an accountability partner to check in once a week for 10 minutes. It's really crazy how having somebody else ask you if you hit your goals, changes things pretty radically. So let me ask you, as we wrap up here, tell me, love to know some takeaways, some concerns, some thoughts, something that you learned, some ahas. Who can I call on?
I like it because it's simple, it's very practical. I think it was Grant Cardone that said, we as humans are not designed to do something complex over a long period of time. So it's very simple and practical, and you can get great results from it.
Yeah, isn't that crazy how simple it is?
It's very simple, yes.
I mean, it's shocking. It's like really shocking. It's totally shocking how simple it is. I agree. I agree. Pop into the chat, guys, if you would, please, and click on the link there that Riley dropped in the chat to just leave a little review of, takeaways. It's anonymous. Don't worry. You could leave your name, or maybe it isn't anonymous. I don't know. Maybe it's not anonymous. Forget it. Still leave me some comments. I would love some feedback on today's class and on talking this book, not even a class, on the 4 disciplines of execution. I have this PDF. If you want, I can share it with you. I'm happy to. I'll do this. Pop into the Google form, and then I'll be able to know who was there, and I can send out the PDF, or I can link it. You know what, even better, I can link it in the Facebook group, which I will write down to do. Somebody else, one other takeaway before we completely wrap up. Doris, can I call on you?
You can. I was just getting ready to unmute.
Yes.
I was just gonna say, I like the reminder that when we're tracking our scoreboard, however we create it, I have a big one. My husband bought me a big one, and I have a big chalkboard too. But however we choose to do it, it should be visible. It should be in our forefront. We should see it daily, multiple times, because that helps keep us focused. It helps keep us excited, but it also helps us to know where we need to change or do more of.
Yeah, agreed. And it's funny because like I said, I love digital as much as anybody else, but at the end of the day, something physical in front of you, even if it's just on paper, is so useful. Anyway, I've got copies of this book. Hope you got something out of it. You don't have to read the whole thing, because that's it. There are 4 disciplines, which are install a wildly important goal, act on the lead measures, keep a compelling scoreboard, and create a cadence of accountability. And on that note, thank you for coming today.